Anthony Davis calls the Phoenix Suns lucky for their first-round series win. Pre-game, the Suns answer in decisive fashion, going up 26 in the first quarter and putting to bed any questions as to which team is better right now. We're talking about the Suns' beatdown of the Los Angeles Lakers on today's Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a contributor at Suns.com as well as Dime Magazine, and a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 5 seasons. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen today and every day, for finding us on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. We are everywhere and we are free, and the best way to keep us that way is to listen and follow along and tell your friends and every Suns fan in your life to do the exact same thing. We are at Locked On PHX Suns on Twitter, if that is your preferred method. Anthony Davis, before the game, I guess did some sort of media availability regarding his progress coming back from an ankle injury, spoke to reporters, and issued his decision, his opinion, his official judgment on the first round series between the Lakers and the Suns. I'll read you what he said in just a second, but today's show, guys, brought to you by BetOnline. You know what time of year it is. BetOnline has you covered throughout March with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. Okay, so pre-game, we got to hear from Frank Vogel on the Lakers side, who said that basically, I'll read the tweet from Dave McMenamin of ESPN. Anthony Davis, asked if his groin injury is the main reason the Lakers didn't beat the Suns in the playoffs last year, says, quote, "It was ... We know that. They know that ... They got away with one." And so I will play you in just a second what it is that Devin Booker said in response, but Monty Williams was actually asked a similar question. It would appear that a reporter had a little bit of an angle on this one, and so asked the same question of a lot of people. We'll talk about what Devin Booker said in a few seconds, but that led to what I would imagine was some raucous laughter in the Suns locker room pregame. And what happens after that is the Suns come out like a group of crazed animals with rabies and all sorts of diseases that are just untamable, is what it felt like. 48-22 in that first quarter, 26-point lead. The Suns basically, I mean, I can read you some of my notes from this. Ayton had 6 boards and 6 points and 3 rebounds in the first few minutes. The Suns were making their pull-up jumpers in transition from deep. The Lakers had 5 timeouts in the first 8 minutes and 50 seconds of this game. They used 3 timeouts in the first quarter alone. They were trying to blitz with Avery Bradley and Talen Horton-Tucker. Russ Westbrook started 1 of 4. These were the notes that I was taking, and then I looked up, and the Suns had more than doubled the Lakers. I believe Kellen Olson told us post-game that the 48 points that the Suns had in this first quarter, were the most given up in a first quarter by the Lakers since the shot clock era, or the live ball era, whatever. Or no, that's baseball. Yes, shot clock era is the NBA. So bad, very bad was the bottom line. The Suns had 79 points in the first half, and it was really never close after the first quarter. Now, I think the Lakers cut it at 1 point to 17 was the closest it ever got after that first quarter, but hardly competitive in that regard. And I think that comment pregame was not the only reason that any of this happened, but a very, very big reason. So I'll play what Devin Booker said. Warning, there is a lot of laughter. He did not necessarily indulge here, but here's what Book had to say.
Yeah.
Did that inspire anything
Nah, that's what's going to happen anyways. I just think it's funny. Yeah.
Why do you think it's funny?
It just is. I know what you're trying to do, Dwayne, but yeah. Nah, it's just all the ifs. And, if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. If my auntie had something between her legs, she'd be my uncle. It's a lot of ifs in this game. And, you look at history along the lines, like there's something that comes up for every team during every season. So, instead of just taking the high route and going, you have to make a comment like that. It's kind of funny.
Monty even said before the game, like, well, Chris was hurt.
Yeah.
For those who couldn't hear the final question that made Book chuckle even harder, Dwayne Rankin of the Arizona Republic asked him, actually referenced what Monty had said pregame when asked a similar question, which is a reminder to everybody that Chris was extremely hurt for the first most of that series and wasn't really himself until, maybe you could say game 6, but really Denver in the second round. So that was what made Book shrug and chuckle. And I obviously have to say that I agree. I believe at the time, just for the sake of holding myself accountable, that my stance was Suns in 7, but I was extremely uneasy about that, and I was teetering. I didn't feel good, and I could have gone either way, but it does feel disingenuous on the part of Anthony Davis to say that whole series was decided because he got injured, and that if things had stayed static and he had not gotten hurt, that the Lakers were just waltzing to the finish line. That it was they got one on us was, I think, his quote. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me to look at things through that vacuum and not understand or realize that Chris was hurt as well. Does that mean that the Suns win that series 100 times out of 100? No, of course not. But I will point out here, for the sake of argument, that in game 1 of the series, which the Suns won at home, very much to most people's surprise, I think, Anthony Davis played 39 minutes, shot 5 of 16 from the field, and was a team worst minus 18. So, and then in game 4, which he ends up leaving, he does play 19 minutes, I believe, and has 6 points. So game 3, AD was dominant. No questions asked. I won't deny you that. But the Suns, aside from himself, which maybe that's part of why he is the one being so confident with his statement tonight, but aside from him, I don't really feel like the Lakers had a genuine advantage in many aspects of the game. Of course, they had LeBron James, but he was hobbled with that ankle injury last year, and the Suns were beating them in almost every other category. So Anthony Davis, very, very mistaken in being so definitive about that, I think. Very understandable why it pissed the Suns off. Probably not completely true, and a very weird thing to say on the whole when your team now is been completely overhauled because you decided that you didn't like that team anymore. So if it was such a given that the Suns were going to lose to the squad that you had, because if you were healthy, then I'm not sure why you and LeBron then went ahead and dismantled the entire thing. And so for you to now say that when that entire team is now gone and the team now is sitting 29 and 37 heading into this one, I can understand why the answer is laughter. I can understand why Booker's response is to chuckle and shrug and hide behind his sunglasses and make jokes about it, because I think history has borne out that the Suns then went to the finals. They are now 54-14, and the Lakers are under 500, about to go on the road in the play-in game. So hard to really feel like AD is standing on any sort of firm ground, and the Suns, just for good measure, went ahead and won by 29 points tonight, putting an exclamation point, a period, ending that debate, that discussion. And I guess it could be reopened this summer. Maybe they play again in the playoffs and we see how that goes. But very strange decision by Anthony Davis and a very forceful response by the Suns. We'll break the game down in more detail, but just that was the story today. And it was a very strange one at that. The Suns, like I said, answering the call in a million ways. So we'll talk about some of the good stuff that went on tonight. First, though, guys, today's show brought to you by Built Bar. It is that time of year, maybe spring break for some of you listening, maybe for your kids. Either way, we are heading toward the NBA playoffs, which means the new year is deep, deep, deep in the rearview mirror, and it's might be that you are slacking on your New Year's resolutions. But Built Bar can be part of the solution. In fact, they're part of mine. I know that when I'm feeling hungry for a snack, that can be when things get really dangerous, but Built Bar is the saving grace in those moments. They are packed with protein, low on sugar, low on calories, and there's a flavor for everybody. So I know that I can put maybe a double chocolate Built Bar where my snack stash used to be, or maybe a strawberry if I'm feeling a little bit on the lighter side and don't want the rich chocolate. Whichever it is, I know they're all going to be delicious. They're covered in 100% chocolate, no matter which flavor you get, and they're soft, easy to chew, and delicious. Not like your typical protein bar, which can be chalky and hard and crunchy. No, this is soft. It tastes like a candy bar. It basically is a candy bar. It just has a lot of protein in it and not a lot of sugar. So make Built Bar part of your solution as we head through the rest of 2022. Fight off the urge to give up on your New Year's resolution and let Built Bar be part of the answer. Go to Built.com, guys. That's Built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. Digging into some of what went right specifically for the Suns to win this game, beat the Lakers, and add to the tailspin that this team has been in, make Anthony Davis look silly for saying so definitively pregame that the Lakers were a better team when healthy. Got to start with Deandre Ayton. All of that response, I think, begins with Ayton. You could look at the box score and maybe feel like Booker is the guy. We'll get to him in a second. But the reason that I really emphasize DA tonight is he had to win his matchups. He had to execute what was being asked of him by the Suns in order for the Suns to win this game, in order for Devin Booker to have space to operate, in order for the defense that the Suns played to hold the Lakers to 22 points and ignite that 26-point lead that they were able to get out to. All of that starts and I don't want to say starts and ends. It begins and is going directly through Deandre Ayton, because the Lakers are playing incredibly small right now. That's been their really only key to success while AD has been out, and really most of the season because he's been out so long. And so LeBron is at the 5, and even Stanley Johnson is technically their 4, but he's a small player to be playing the 4th. Any U of A fans are listening, you will remember that he was like a wing or guard when he was playing with the Wildcats. He can't shoot, so that makes you a big man in today's NBA, but he's not a big player either. And so the Suns had to be able to dominate with their size advantage, and they had to be able to, on the defensive end, switch interchangeably and hold up. And so Ayton being able to grab 16 rebounds, including 5 on the offensive glass, him being able to score and be really efficient doing so, 11 of 14 from the field, and then hold up when he had to go out and defend a LeBron James on the perimeter, or defend a Russell Westbrook, or even a Carmelo Anthony out there on the perimeter. Those things had to happen. Those are boxes you had to check to win this game. And so to do that was a big necessary part of the win, but also doing so in a response to not doing so against the Raptors on Friday, which honestly, if this Lakers game hadn't had so much going into it with AD saying what he did and all the rest, I would have liked to devote some time to the Raptors game, because there was a lot of interesting stuff in that one. It was a loss, so I didn't want to do a bonus episode just breaking down in excruciating detail the Suns losing a game, so I did not put that on you guys. But it was really fascinating, and obviously at the end of the day, it did not go well for the Suns, and a big part of that was not rebounding the ball and not being able to handle the versatility that the Raptors were able to put out there. Whether that was, well, it wasn't as small as the Lakers, but it was still, the versatility was a struggle, and trying to defend them and handle them the normal way for the Suns didn't go so well. And so coming off of that night where Ayton, I believe, had single-digit rebounds, was not himself. And I believe the Suns got out rebounded by double digits. I can say that pretty definitively. So all of that is to say that Ayton took what happened on Friday in a loss, turned it into something big, and answered that response, answered the need, answered the challenge that he set for himself. And Monty Williams told us post game that DA actually texted him on yesterday, between these two games, and said, like, hey, we all are seeing this. I know I need to dominate more, and I can, inside as a scorer, inside as just a presence for this team. And so, like, let's figure out ways to go through me, sort of thing. Which Ayton backed up, said, that was exactly where his mind was at. And so to not only, take ownership on Friday night of the rebounding problems, and be, open about the fact that Ayton was part of the loss, him taking that upon himself, but then to answer that call was big. And it's a continuation of what he's done against the Lakers for 2 years now. Anytime these teams play, there was one bad loss where Dario Saric closed the game over Deandre Ayton last year, actually kind of around this time, maybe more close to the All-Star break in February. But other than that, DA has been good for a pretty monster double-double every time these teams meet up. So maybe we shouldn't have been too surprised. Have to talk about Devin Booker here as well, because just the box score. I don't even know how much more detail I necessarily need to go into. He was 30 points in 32 minutes, as well as 10 assists and 2 turnovers. Shot making to the nth degree. This was, honestly, I will say that this was one of the best Devin Booker games of the entire season, just in terms of the shot making, the energy, the playmaking, all of it. The efficiency. He was 8 of 15 on his twos tonight. So his 2-point percentage has slowly been creeping up. Tonight will do him a favor in that category, as well as he tries to get a little bit closer to a 40, 50, 90 season. This already, I think, has been cemented as the best season of Booker's career because of how many nights like this he has had. But statistically, he's getting closer and closer to some special thresholds. And tonight was another example of that. I would say, though, the place that I really want to emphasize for him is the defensive end of the floor, because he had 4 steals in this game on top of everything else that I just went through. And 4 steals is one thing, but the intelligence with which he was playing defense tonight. The Lakers looked at times like the last thing they wanted to be doing was playing a basketball game tonight from basically the jump. I don't know why. I think we can guess why. I'm not sure why AD again picked tonight to be so confident when his team was going to roll the ball out like it was the last game of the season and they're headed to the lottery. They talk like they still have some fight in them for the postseason, and they don't play like it. But despite all of that, for 4 steals for Devin Booker is a special night. He's not a guy thought of for his defense. We know that he's made leaps and bounds strides since Monty Williams came here, basically, since this team really started to become competitive. But you have to shout out his defense on a night like this, and especially, to handle some of the matchups that he was, whether that was Westbrook, which was where he started the game, switching like he had to do, like everybody on this team had to do, and handling the foul trouble, because he picked up his 4th foul with 7 minutes and 15 seconds left in the third quarter. Now, the game was pretty much out of reach at that point. The Lakers' fight seemed to be gone from them at that point, but he had 3 fouls, I believe, in the second quarter. It was on the verge of becoming a problem where he would have had to be benched, and he was able to keep it in check. So playing the passing lanes, handling different matchups, handling different assignments, and still, not fouling, not allowing that to become a problem. All really good stuff. So dominant 2-way performance, the type of thing you absolutely need to and want to see out of your best player heading toward playoff time. Again, one of the best nights of his season, I think, in my opinion. So more of that has been, it's just been more of the same from him since Chris Paul has been down. These double-doubles with assists have been coming. He has stayed up to his standard on defense as far as my eye can tell. And look, he's headed toward an All-NBA season, but can't just overlook it. You cannot just continue to let these box scores go by without giving it up to Devin Booker. So wanted to do that tonight. Have a few more thoughts here on what this matchup looks like, because it does feel like it could be our first round series 1-8 this year in the Western Conference, and do our bench mob vibe check and some other segments here as well. First though, guys, another quick word from BetOnline. It's that time of year again, March, as college basketball's tournaments are finally upon us. So from all the latest odds, contests, and player props to who might walk away with it all, cutting down the net, as they say, betonline.net is the number one source for all of it, your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news throughout March and beyond. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all sporting bet info needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's close things out with a couple go-to recap segments here, starting with the bench mob vibe check. And the place that I want to go first is Torrey Craig, who I've been keeping tabs on here in these segments for basically the entire time since the All-Star break, the entire time Chris Paul has been out. And look, part of me felt like and continues to feel like there is a little bit of judging role players that needs to be couched with the fact that Chris Paul is out. It's a little bit difficult to judge a guy like Torrey Craig when the head of the snake, so to speak, is sidelined on the bench right now. But at the same time, you also just have to be honest with the fact that, look, other guys are still making their shots. Other guys are still being set up. Campaign has become a double-digit assist machine. So why is Craig not benefiting from the fact that the Suns are still generating good looks and he's just missing them? So, two sides of the same coin, but I think that's something that needs to be fixed. And so tonight, to see him go 5 of 8, to see him be a little bit more in attack mode, getting downhill, the pace of this game was much more on his terms. It was 104.2 pace. The Suns had basically 104 possessions in this game. And so that will favor a guy like Craig, who is an energy player, is a rhythm player. And so to get some of those easy looks at the basket, he was also pretty strong as a cutter tonight, which was really good. The Lakers had a few moments where their defense was able to lock in, but the Suns' ball movement was just too much. 36 assists tonight, and Craig finishes 5 of 8 from the field for 11 points. So hopefully that can get him into rhythm a little bit. We're also going to see games against some teams that should allow that coming up here. Some bad teams, the Kings that tend to play a little bit faster, etc. So maybe that's all it'll take for him to click in. We'll see, but a good night, positive momentum there. A couple other things from a bench standpoint. So Bismack Biyombo played in the normal rotation. Monty was able to get him in for 2 minutes in that second quarter. It's something Monty likes to do when it comes to vets on the end of the bench. We saw him do that with Langston Galloway, especially from time to time last year. Just guys who deserve and have earned the opportunity to play, but there's just not a spot for them because there's just talent ahead of them and a rotation that's been solidified that's just sitting there ahead of them. And there's no harm in it. There's no, criticism about it. And I think Monty feels bad when those situations arise. And so he said after how well Bismack played on Friday, turning the tide of that Raptors game, that he wanted to try to find opportunities for Biyombo to play. Unfortunately, in the competitive part of the second half, Biyombo did not get in there, although maybe Monty saw the light at the end of the tunnel and knew Biyombo was going to be out there with the white flag lineup, so to speak. So hard to tell if he would have gone back to him, but it was just those 2 minutes in that first half. I personally don't think Monty should necessarily have to really worry about that. Bismack has shown that he can be ready when he needs to be. I think there will be certain specific matchups where he will really come in handy. The Bucks in the finals would be the obvious one as an option on Giannis, but maybe if the Lakers are healthy in the first round, and that's what we do see here, maybe that's part of the AD answer. I don't know, but I do think Biyombo, just with what he's asked to do, which is basically don't make bad decisions on offense, rebound like crazy, and play defense. He's going to be able to do that in his sleep. I don't think it's something Monty should fret about. It's not like Galloway where it's like your jumper needs to stay warm. It's a different situation. So I would say by the time the playoffs come, Monty will not worry about that. Bismack will not be part of the rotation unless the matchup calls for it. But interesting, nevertheless, just sort of subplot to be watching there. Let's close out, though. Those are, bench mob vibe check, good stuff to get to. But what I want to do here is actually just look a little bit more closely at this matchup again, because, right now the Lakers are in position to potentially be the 8th seed, play the Minnesota Timberwolves in that play-in, and then play the winner of the 9-10 game at home to clinch the 8th seed if they lose that first game. But let's just say that the standings stay relatively the same. The Suns play the Lakers in that 1-8 matchup, and these are the teams. AD, part of why he spoke today is because he is going to be doing on-court work after spraining his ankle, which was, I believe, like 4 games into his return from a previous injury. So he has really had a rough go of it, dating back to that playoff series against the Suns when he, couldn't stay on the floor then either. It's hard to say if he would play because of that. But let's say he does. Let's say he's healthy. You're looking at a lineup, basically a starting lineup at the very least, with Russ, Monk, Reeves, LeBron, and Davis. I would feel like the playoffs would be a time when maybe Westbrook does not close games. Maybe Monk and Reeves don't. I think that lineup is potentially able to be altered. They have Kendrick Nunn, who I have no idea if he's going to be able to play. Dwight Howard doesn't look like much of he looks like a shell of himself, frankly. Avery Bradley, Booker is not going to be worried about. And then you have, can Trevor Ariza get back? Can Taylor Horton-Tucker do enough on offense to get out there? I don't know, but part of me feels like you could see maybe Ariza in there for Reeves to close. Monk has been a really integral part of their team, but could it be a closing lineup of Westbrook, Monk, Ariza, LeBron, AD? Let's imagine that. I still just feel like there's not enough defense, especially when you're talking about guarding Devin Booker, which was already a problem for last year's Lakers, and they have 0 options, whereas last year at least they had a couple. I don't think that lineup can clamp down on the Suns enough. I don't think it has enough size. Even if AD is healthy enough to be playing, is he going to be able to match Ayton's physicality and athleticism, having been injured all year, and his conditioning being a question coming back right as the playoffs are about to start. And then the bench, frankly, like I don't even know what the Lakers bench is. In that situation, I guess you have Reeves, maybe you have, Horton-Tucker, maybe Nunn is back, like Nunn, Reeves, Horton-Tucker, Carmelo, and Dwight. Like the Suns will feast on that. You have Paul and Booker staggered, and maybe they stagger LeBron and AD, but this Lakers team just does not have enough talent. It doesn't have enough talent. It doesn't have enough defensive ability. It was all right there to be observed from the jump, and the Lakers didn't do anything about it. So I don't understand why Anthony Davis chose tonight to be so cocky and confident. The Suns answered that part of it. The Lakers have not had a chance against this Suns team for most of this season, even at the first week of the year when the Suns were in their worst moments this year, when they lost to the Kings in the first week and lost to the Trailblazers. They still were able to just smack the Lakers. Like this matchup has not been close, and so I don't get it. I would not be worried about this team in the first round if I was the Suns. It is star power. You can't ever count LeBron and Anthony Davis out. Those are 2 all-time great players, but I don't think the Suns would even need 7 games to get through this team in a potential first round series. So last time we'll see them before the playoffs. So just wanted to take a second to just kind of talk through that. But as you can tell, I don't think the Suns really think much of that and wouldn't be too scared. And I don't think they have a reason to. That'll close us out, guys. We will be back-to-back games this week, Tuesday, Wednesday. So game recaps coming. Aaron Edwards will close us out on Thursday. See if I can get a guest tomorrow. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about some of those Raptors observations. Maybe talk about the fact that John Najafi and Colin Kaepernick were courtside at this game, which is the Suns' minority owner and his business partner, Colin Kaepernick. Right as we're hearing that this investigation may be on its last legs. I don't know. We'll see. Lots to get to. Good stuff every day. Thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single day. Now go make Locked On NBA your second listen to catch up on everything you missed across the league this weekend.